Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hacking with Friends. Thank you so much for bearing with us today. We're starting a little bit late because we were running our Resurrecting Cat Fancy with DNS Spoofing webinar, which, was quite a deal. So my name is Kody Kinsey. I am a security researcher with Varonis, and this is Michael, our chief camera wrangler, who has been managing both the stream earlier and the live stream today.
Yep.
So today we are fully live, and we are here to answer your questions as well as announce the winner of our first contest ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds exciting.
So last time we announced the launch of our website. You can go to it with hackingwithfriends.com, or I believe it's like varonis.com/SecurityFWD.
info.varonis.com/securityforward.
Hilarious. But either way, you can go to hackingwithfriends.com. You can sign up there to be notified anytime that we go live or anytime that we're planning events. And also, you might win a prize. So today, we are going to give away a prize to a special community member of ours who has been showing up to these live streams a lot and contributing a whole lot too. Do you know who I'm talking to?
Probably Sam.
Yep, Zam. So Zam has been around since we started doing these live streams and has been really awesome about helping other members of the community out. So we wanted to recognize him for not only being awesome, but also managing to get our CRM at Varonis to pull in a bunch of really weird information. And we have no idea how he did that. So usually we're going to be doing things like giving out Varonis shirts and decks of Cards Against Humanity, but we're going to do something special today and also give out this really cool little Space Hoon PCB. There are only 4 of these that we have, so this is a very special little gift. The eyes light up and everything, and it's a cool little piece of PCB art that is custom and awesome. So
yes, hack.gay will also get you there.
Yes. If you want to explore all of my work, all of my greatest hits, you can go to hack.gay. So we are excited to go through the YouTube channel every week and take a look at all of the questions that you guys have left on the YouTube channel. And we like to take these opportunities to say hello, ask for feedback, and also answer all the questions that have been left on the YouTube channel. So we make sure we highlight all the great ones and make sure all of you also get to benefit from the answers to these great questions.
Yep. So the first one we have here is, what happens if you don't put the card in monitor mode? I don't seem to have to. I followed along a few times without it. All works for me. What am I missing by not being in monitor mode? Is it safer as then I am not transmitting?
So monitor mode is a special mode of Wi-Fi cards that not all wireless cards can support. So if you are doing Wi-Fi hacking stuff, your card is going to be in, by default, one of a couple modes. One of them will be in maybe station mode, where it is able to join another network and connect. Now, the reason why it's important to be able to change this mode is, by default, your computer is exhibiting something like what we call selective attention. So if I'm in a room and there's lots of people talking and Michael and I are having a conversation, my brain is able to filter out all those other conversations that aren't related to me, even though I can technically hear them. Now, when you put your wireless network adapter into monitor mode, what you're doing is you're setting it to not just listen to other people on the same channel as you or on the same Wi-Fi network as you, but listen to everybody around you. So by default, your wireless network card is going to first ignore any message that's not sent to it, and second, only listen for messages that are on the same Wi-Fi network. But if you put it into monitor mode, then suddenly it's going to listen to every device that's broadcasting on that same channel, which could be lots of other wireless networks that you are not connected to. So for Wi-Fi hacking, it's really useful for us to be able to see all these other networks and look at all the packets, maybe capture some handshakes or something like that, because without doing so, we would be restricted in the types of packets that our wireless network adapter is going to listen to. So it's a little confusing because there's promiscuous mode, which means that we're listening to everything on the same wireless network as us, even if the traffic's not meant for our machine. And then there's monitor mode, where it's listening to everything on the whole channel. So it's easy to get kind of confused between those.
Okay, so a really good question here is the pen test plus worth it for the employers, or is a certified ethical hacker better?
So I have to admit, there are lots of different jobs in cybersecurity, and my job does not require certifications. I am a trainer, I teach, I create media. So for me, having certifications isn't as important. If you're going for a pen testing route, especially if you
I
don't
think you
have a lot of...
misunderstand the question.
What?
I think the person is asking. So, or
No,
well,
I
okay. So
understand.
for employer, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
if you're going, for example, a pen testing job, and you don't have a lot of work experience, for sure, like having these certifications and showing them you're not some like no-name person, you actually have some knowledge you can prove up front is great. But frankly, if you can get involved at a company that's doing cybersecurity stuff, apply your skills and transition into that job, that's kind of how I went about it. It's not as direct of as a route, but showing a strong interest in cybersecurity and being part of a company that's doing cybersecurity, even if that's not your primary role. For example, I'm technically in the marketing department. However, I do lots of independent cybersecurity research. I present at conferences, and I work with other members of the cybersecurity community all the time. So there's lots of ways to get into it, and I'm just saying, certifications aren't everything, but if you're just coming straight into cybersecurity, you have nothing else to show for job experience, and you need to get some stranger with the company to trust
It's
you.
some good experience, yeah.
Exactly.
So kind of the other side of that question, the way I had originally interpreted it was, so if you are a business, your employer, and you're looking to beef up your security, kind of how would you go about that? Would you hire some pen testers? Would you start a bug bounty program? Like,
Oh, well, I'm sorry. That's very. It depends on your business entirely.
Yeah.
It depends on if you're a web-based business, if you're a bank, if you're a
Right.
That's too vague
Okay.
to really answer. It really matters for the individual business's risk model and what is the most likely and most dangerous thing that could happen to their business.
yeah. I would say if you could afford it, a holistic and approach where you have one pen test crew come in and like do everything, that would be great.
I
Otherwise,
Pentest Plus is a certification.
oh, is it? Okay.
I think
Well, either way, I'm answering another question, Kody. Thank you for the more corporate people that might be watching. And if you could start a bug bounty program, or if you can get the business you work at to start a bug bounty program, that's great. You know, obviously, some businesses might not be able to pay out big bounties, but at least having a program set up can be helpful.
Okay, so also thank you to everyone who attended our DNS cat spoofing cat fancy webinar we just did. I'm sorry if you didn't win the $250 prize that Veronis gave out, but someone did. Someone named Michael. It's very suspicious. But yeah, we really want to share some more stuff like that. And also, if you guys have like the OSINT content we've been doing, like the Bitcoin investigation we did of a neo-Nazi organization that was accepting Bitcoin donations, please let us know. We'll do more of them. I just came off of a training seminar with a bunch of awesome Norwegian journalists who were using how to take these techniques and apply them to investigations. So there's lots of great OSINT stuff we can do if you guys like it. So I appreciate the feedback on that.
Okay. Onward to our next question.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I wish this was on the Pi. I'm not able to find it if it is, and that's in reference to the Parrot Security OS.
Yeah, so I haven't. So I've heard that you can install Parrot Security OS on the Raspberry Pi. I do not think that it's an easy process, and I haven't seen it documented very well. I haven't also checked it for a couple months, so maybe they have changed it. But right now, I do not think that Parrot Security OS is as simple as or as easy to install on a Raspberry Pi as Kali Linux is, which is unfortunate. If I'm wrong, though, the Parrot security people are like constantly popping up in my stream or on Nullbyte and like telling me that they're updating stuff or like this stuff is like, you know, happening. So they seem to be extremely active. So unless something's happened, I anticipate that at some point they will make the effort to put Parrot security on Kali Linux. But it's also kind of like designed to be a really smooth and nice experience. Or sorry, on a Raspberry Pi, not on Kali Linux. But because Parrot Security OS is designed to be a nice experience, I believe they probably don't want it running on a device that might slow that down and make it clunky or like kind of perform poorly for people that are using it. So that could be why they haven't totally done that. And there's another follow-up question, which is where should I go to get my certification? It is a little expensive, but we know the people at SANS, and I think they're great. I think that a lot of the stuff they do is wonderful. I will say it's quite expensive sometimes, but if you can get an employer or somebody else to pay for it, I know that SANS does a great job with their certifications, and they're generally pretty well respected.
Cool. Next question.
Yeah. Actually, let me answer this one because this is related to a stream we did very recently. So one person asked, what to do after grabbing a WPA handshake? I know about dictionary attacks, but I don't live in an English-speaking country, so wordless like RockU don't work.
Yeah,
Didn't we just do?
We recently did a live stream on creating custom word lists, so I would recommend watching that, as well as basically what you'll need to do is find a text file of the words in your language. It's not really that complicated. Just Google around and you'll find, basically you just need a text file with each line being a different word in your language, and then you'll just throw that in one of those programs. The Mentalist was one I used, and then do you remember the names of the others? If not, just watch
Cup.
Huh?
Cup, C-U-P.
Yeah, Cup. I don't know if you can actually use your own. Well, yeah, you could use your own custom list in that.
Yeah, it's basically like different word manglers and word spinners that will take a base list or maybe a dictionary and then append stuff, change the capitalization. It'll just take 500 words in and generate like a list of like 10 million in some cases,
Right.
and that'll be a pretty comprehensive list of some of the more common different passwords in that language. So I really word lister.
Yeah,
is another one.
honestly, regardless of what language you're in, I would probably still take like the top 10,000 or 100,000 most common passwords worldwide and use those. And then on top of that, use a program like Cup if you have a specific target to individualize passwords for that person. Otherwise, you could use Mentalist and a custom dictionary and then mangle that and combine words randomly and combine words with numbers, so on and so forth.
And then we had another question about the Ponagachi project.
Oh, wasn't that Kickstarter we contacted?
No, that's Flipper.
Flipper, that's right.
You're getting. By the way, we're very excited about Flipper, especially because I've been in contact with the developer before his project made like an insane amount on Kickstarter. But I was just like, hey, bro, like nice soldering job. And there was one part where he had the wrong value of resistor, so he stacked like 5 on top of each other and soldered them all down the side. And as an electronics person, I was just like, nice. Like that is not how you're supposed to do
Just
that, but
in
it
parallel?
works. Yeah, it was
Nice.
amazing. So like I think that once they come out, we should be able to get one to review and have on the show. But I actually don't have a Ponagachi. I've wanted one. I think that they're cool. But yeah, I've heard some kind of mixed things about whether or not the development is ongoing. So I still want to try it because I love e-ink also as a medium. I think that's cool.
As a display?
Yeah, as a display. Well, I mean, just as like a medium for displaying information and like as a way of creating an interface. But yeah, I would love to try it out. I think that the fundamentals are really cool and that there's not a lot of stuff that captures handshakes that's good for like war walking because if you're doing something like B-side NG for doing handshake capturing, then by the time you walk to a new area, it's like targeting networks that were like 2 blocks back. So there's not a lot of very useful ways of capturing handshakes that I've seen that compare to that design. So I think it's cool. I just wish I had one to actually test out.
Yeah, we can link to the Flipper Kickstarter in a bit. Do you want to pull that up on your
Yeah,
screen?
I'll take a look. I'll see if I can find it. But the Flipper project looked really cool. It seems to have blown up on Kickstarter.
Yeah, and that, for people that didn't know, that wasn't like an SDR kind of related thing, or I don't remember exactly.
You can switch to my screen and I'll show it off.
There we go.
So this is Flipper Zero. This is the one that I'm kind of more excited about than the Ponagachi. And you can see that it has raised some money.
Just a few dollars.
Almost $5 million. And I know not a lot about this dude other than that his avatar is a praying mantis, which is great, and he's Russian, and he has a great sense of humor. Those are the things I know for sure about the developer of this project. But as you can see, it's supposed to be able to do basic software-defined radio stuff, like being able to open this heavily stickered barricade. It's supposed to be able to do some basic Wi-Fi stuff, some basic Bluetooth stuff. It's supposed to be able to do things like analyzing signals like key fobs, RFID stuff, so being able to get into like buildings, things like that. iButton contact keys. Ooh. I know what these are. So there are security guards in Los Angeles who will walk around and like touch their baton to these, and these are contact-based microcontroller beacons where like somebody who wants to like log when a security guard was at a certain place will put them all around the perimeter, and the guard will take like a smart baton. I'm not making this up, you guys, and go around and tap their baton on these, like they look like little pill batteries as they walk around, and the baton logs the time and the place And then when they go back in statistics, they can see who was on duty, who was at a certain place at a certain time, and where they were on their patrol. And I was so confused because I was like, I saw these things glued to random surfaces around LA, and I was like, what is this? Yeah. And I literally like followed these people around trying to figure it out. And then I finally found the number that was printed on one of these things and like looked it up. And yeah, so if you ever see one of these stuck to a surface and it looks like that, that is actually a contact-based beacon that has information.
Sort of funny other incident of finding those is I was playing laser tag one time, and Laser Quest would use those to uniquely identify each player. So I had the thought, I was like, you could totally read that, basically read the one you get given to your user ID, and then as the game goes on, you could just slyly go up to other people's laser guns, and then make them you. And so they would be tagging people for you.
That's great. So then here you can see that it's also designed to be a hardware security token, an infrared transceiver so you can mess with random TVs that accept remote controls and just like change the channel if you want to. And it has a learning feature so you can blast it and it'll save codes, which is really great if you want to just quickly grab the on-off from a keyboard. Open source firmware. Yeah, this project is ridiculous, honestly. It's like really got a lot going on. I don't know if it's ever gonna really exist. Maybe $5 million is enough to buy an island somewhere, and this dude is just gonna be like, "Thanks, guys," and we're never gonna see it.
I've had that sort of thing happen to me on Kickstarter before, but hopefully not this project.
Yeah, hopefully not this project. All right, let's go back to the chat.
Did you want prior comment?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Can we get that OS roundup? That would be awesome to see.
Yeah, so if you guys want to see a roundup of different operating systems for hacking, we tried to do one on Arch, but our Arch expert turned against Arch in the middle of the stream and decided that it was too difficult and annoying to install.
Did we even air that one?
No, we didn't. It's on the cutting room floor. Yeah. So there are some operating systems that are pretty easy to install via a couple routes. Arch is not always one of them, but Black Arch, when it's prepackaged as like a EDI or something, is like not that hard to do, provided you have like 25 gigabytes of disk space.
But yeah, we can try to do that episode sometime before the end of the year, and just do like 5-10 minute version of the install for each OS and kind of our initial thoughts of each.
I didn't know that Gen 1 Segways use those I buttons. That's great.
I think Segways are not made anymore even.
No, it was so it's really complicated. I learned about this when scooters were deployed all over Los Angeles. I was like, why does this company say Segway? So the creator of the Segway segwayed off a cliff and died, and then a Chinese company bought it, and then that company started making their own designs that have nothing to do with the Segway, and then it's slowly been killed off. But they still own it and like produce like limited amounts. And that's the story of the Segway.
Okay. Okay, did you want another question?
Yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. My Airgeddon handshake capture doesn't work at all. I'm using an alpha card, which successfully switched to monitor mode and was able to scan a bunch of SSIDs, including my own Wi-Fi. So when I tried to do deauth handshakes on my own Wi-Fi, no matter how long I set the time for, I can't do anything.
Well, okay, so one of the things with working with BetterCap is it allows you to capture PMKIDs, which is not a handshake. It's basically something that's like a handshake that can be used to crack the password, but using Hashcat. So one thing that happens is sometimes if you capture something on BetterCap, then try to run it through like AirCrack NG or something, it won't work because it might not support PMKIDs. I felt like it might have been updated to, but I don't. Maybe it doesn't. I think you still have to use Hashcat with some like weird arguments in order to do it. So that could be the cause of your problem if you're not able to use a PMKID that you capture. If you're not getting any handshakes, then it's very likely that a device isn't connected, or there's devices that, another reason could be that like 5 gigahertz networks, like you can't kick people off, so like it can be futile. So if you're going after like a 5 gigahertz network or something and your card doesn't support injection on that channel, that could be another reason. It's kind of one of those problems where I don't quite have enough information to be totally sure. But I do know that I can answer Ace Tep's question about why my computer is labeled Dell. So I have, so I have a Linux computer. Hold on.
You can go in and change the MAC address.
I have a Linux computer, and then I have a Mac OS computer. and this one on the network is labeled MacBook Pro, and this one on the network is labeled Dell. And all the time, network scan. I don't really do any like MAC address spoofing or anything, but all the time, just having the network name MacBook Pro will cause this computer to be identified as a MacBook Pro by scanners like Fing Network Scanner, which is hilarious. So unless you do another scan to determine the operating system or something, this actually will camouflage itself a little bit on the network, at least to some of these commercial scanners, just by changing the network name, which is so dumb. But I constantly confuse people on the stream and also on Nullbyte by just swapping the names of the network names of these computers. This one is named Dell, my MacBook Pro, and this one is named MacBook Pro, my Linux computer. So it's very confusing, and I did it on purpose, is the answer.
Okay. So one of the other questions I saw is, have you heard of the dolphin attack?
I was not going to answer that one because, sorry, John, I have not heard of the dolphin attack. Or if I have, I've completely forgotten about it. I'll take a look at it. I'll answer that one next time. One question is, would the new MacBook be good for hacking, or should I get an older one? I have always been on the fence about whether or not MacBook Pros are good for hacking. My cautious argument has been yes so far, just because they're so similar, or they're a Linux-based computer, but there's a lot of other like exceptions. I generally go by the word of Patrick Wardle, who's an extremely talented Mac security researcher who loves poking around inside macOS and keeping an eye on what they're doing. And recently he's been sounding the alarm that macOS in its newest version is basically bypassing firewalls and locking the user out of critical controls about what traffic goes in and out of the machine, which truly makes it so that you don't really have access to the core of a macOS computer. It really does belong to someone else. So with this recent advancement, unless they roll it back or address it somehow, I am kind of rescinding my recommendation of MacBook Pros as a good way of getting into hacking. The older ones seem to be fine, but on the newer silicon, it is impossible to disable this. So yeah, like there's some things about MacBook Pros. For one, if you plug in a wireless network adapter, Apple has not made the Wi-Fi drivers public, so there's no way to do Wi-Fi hacking on a MacBook Pro except by running a virtual machine and connecting your USB wireless network adapter to the virtual machine. Then you can do it, but it's kind of a pain, honestly, when you need to go through the whole process of like running a virtual machine just to do something very basic. Now, I will say that Windows is also pretty useless for hacking. Like when you want to do certain Linux stuff, you end up having to run like a Docker image or a Linux machine or something. But I still think that the whole not allowing you to control whether or not information is going out of the computer and being logged by Apple, as well as bypassing any firewall rules that you set and locking you out of being able to monitor traffic going in and out of the computer, that's some stuff I don't really like. So Apple's rapidly losing my trust because of these policies that they've implemented rather recently.
Okay. So, hey, please explain more on dehashing.
Dehashing. So reversing a hash?
Yeah, it was on the word list
Oh,
video.
right. So oftentimes a company will hash information like a password list or something like that. And they'll be like, all right, it's protected. We're not actually saving the passwords, we're saving a hash. But if a hash is a very common one, then it's really easy to write a program that just goes through and dehashes each one. So typically a good website will use a hash and a salt to make it more difficult to recover the information. Or they'll use a hashing algorithm like bcrypt, which gives you a unique result every time you hash it, so it's much more difficult to reverse. But I mean, if you take a common password and just hash it using SHA-1, and then copy and paste that SHA-1 hash into Google, it just tells you what it is. Like, it's so common to use some of these hashes that you can reverse them literally with a Google search. So a lot of these companies that are storing user passwords with a hash and then don't salt it or use a weak hashing method, it's trivial for a hacker or anybody with a computer with a little bit of resources, or maybe even Google Cloud Shell, to just go ahead and reverse these hashes and get the password.
Yep. And some programs you could use for that: John the Ripper, Hashcat. What was the other one?
Those would be my ones of preference. Hashcat would be my preference.
Okay. Onward.
Oh, and Zam does correct us that Segways are still made, just not the original model. Yes, and that the owner of the company of Segway died, but the creator lives on somewhere.
Okay. Can you guys go into Kismet with ADS-B to track aircraft? I would love to get into trying that out for tracking aircraft while war driving too, since there's tons of air traffic in LA. So yeah, we can do that. We did do a video entirely on ADS-B tracking, and we did mention ADS-B tracking during the Kismet video, but we haven't really combined the two. So if y'all are interested in that, we can do that sometime in the next couple of weeks. I do think that would be cool to maybe go in Kismet and see, like, if we just try to collect everything we possibly can at once, could we? Like, if we plug in, like, 4 adapters to a Raspberry Pi and just chug them all in at once, would it work? Like our baby cactus, the baby Wi-Fi cactus.
Yeah, no.
That would be fun.
That would be fun. So there's one question. Is it possible to use Wireshark to capture and then edit packages before releasing them? I don't understand your question, but it intrigues me. Please restate. If you mean packets, like capture and edit packets before like replaying
like man
them?
in the middle attack, I think, is what they're kind of saying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think you could use Wireshark to rebroadcast the packet. You would use like Wireshark to capture the packet, and then you would have another program that was like reading what Wireshark was capturing in real time and playing it back, like something like that. But yeah, you could arrange something like that. Although there's also automated frameworks like BetterCap that we just demonstrated that will do some of that stuff automatically behind the scenes.
When he says just, he means in a previous webinar, which is not attached to this current video.
Yes. Well, I mean, like literally an hour ago.
Yeah. Okay. Could you use this on smart toys in relation to hacking routers and IoT devices with router exploits?
Oh my gosh, yes. You could ruin your siblings' day. You could hack your children's smart toys to make them do stuff. Absolutely. Like most of these things that have cheap, Wi-Fi or something else modules in them that then connect back to an app or something are not well developed, and they don't have any security in mind. So just by doing some basic sniffing, it's easy to connect to any of these devices and start sending them arbitrary requests, or see what the commands that control them are and start messing with them.
Okay, so John went on to explain what the Dolphin attack is. Essentially, it's an attack against smart assistants, which uses ultrasound so that the assistant hears it, but the human does not.
Yeah, so there's 2 attacks I know against digital assistants that work this way. One of them is a laser-based attacks because the weird microphones that they use in a lot of smart assistant speakers are susceptible to going off when they're hit by light. People don't really know why this happens, but for whatever reason, if you focus light and point it at one of these speakers, it will actually register it as sound. So you can create a silent beam that will actually trigger a home assistant to do something like unlock a door, maybe if you have a smart door lock, that cannot be heard by anyone else. Now, a variation on this is ultrasonic. Now, the problem here is that not all speakers can hear in the ultrasonic range. We were going over an exfiltration technique that was using just random sounds, and some of them were also available to be transmitted by ultrasonic sounds. But the barrier here is most microphones are not tuned this way, so they don't have as good resolution in that region of what they can hear, or it's clipped a little bit so they can't hear the whole spectrum we're trying to transmit on. So because you never know exactly what kind of speaker or what kind of microphone is going to be on a device, that limits the effectiveness of this attack somewhat, but it's still really cool.
Tying into that, something I was interested in recently is basically ultrasonic arrays, commonly referred to as parametric speakers. So essentially, if you are familiar with what a phased array does, by using different phasing of the ultrasonic signal, you can steer it like a laser beam, but it's a laser beam of ultrasound. And by modulating it, you can make it so that when it hits a solid surface, it will actually demodulate into the human range of hearing. I don't know if the Dolphin attack utilizes that, but I imagine you could utilize that. And normally you would do it so it makes it sound like a surface is actually transmitting the sound, not the speaker. But if you did it low enough, you could make it where the phone hears itself vibrating, but it's not making that much noise, or whatever smart speaker. So something like that could potentially work. I don't know if that's actually been used in the field yet, or if that's like a research idea.
So we have one question, which is, have you got out on 5G yet? And if you're talking about 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, we've actually talked about how to hack that before. And if you're talking about 5G cell towers, then it's actually the best way to get vitamin D nowadays. Everyone has been quarantined. We're huge supporters of 5G. Go out and get yourself some vitamin D by standing close to one of their towers anytime you can. And then Zam has a great question. This is probably noteworthy for everyone. Microsoft is taking a stand, and they've been very vocal about this, where they really want to end SMS-based multi-factor authentication. They don't want to use it anymore. And for me, I still feel like I'm pulling people to implement like two-factor authentication at all.
Yeah.
But a lot of people who feel like they're up on security are using multi-factor authentication that is based on text messages, and this is not secure. It's not a good idea because anybody can pull one of these sneaky attacks that can either intercept it or temporarily reroute traffic from your cell phone or do any of these other things that can allow them to compromise your account. There's lots of horror stories of account takeovers that happen this way.
SIM swap attacks.
SIM swap attacks, social engineering attacks. It's really interesting what attackers can do with this. So Microsoft is saying these multi-factor authentication tokens are much better. As a user of multi-factor authentication tokens, I can tell you they are annoying.
They're really frustrating sometimes.
Yes, I've been using them for years now, and I constantly lose them or otherwise have a hard time finding them and otherwise find that they
Some of that might be user error.
Says the person who doesn't use multi-factor authentication at all. But here we have a problem. It's a little more difficult for the average user to keep track of a physical token. So if they lose it and they need to get into their account, they might not be used to basically being told by a company, hey, sorry, you can't get into your account at all unless you have this physical thing. So for people that are used to being able to get in with just a password, taking the leap from, okay, I need a password manager and I need to check my cell phone, all the way to, okay, I need a hardware device. The good news is you can use your phone on a lot of Android devices as a actual hardware token as well. So you don't necessarily need to go out and get a hardware token, but frankly, if you're going to switch over to a hardware-based security system, you should probably get a couple. You should get a couple of them and keep them in a safe place. Maybe keep one of them with someone you trust in like a lockbox or something. But the point is like, if anything is to happen to these tokens, it is going to be really, really hard to get into your account. So just keep that in mind when you're switching over to one of these. But again, it is very secure and it makes stealing your password basically useless. And by the way, to whoever keeps trying to log into my StarCraft account, it's not going to work. You can try all day.
Oh.
I keep getting the login attempt request.
Is it on Steam?
I don't want to talk about it, but your attempts to ruin my day will not work. Stop.
Okay. Do you want me to...
Unless you steal my hardware token, it's not going to work.
Is there a solution for Wi-Fi routers that broadcast 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz at the same time and also has channel hopping? The routers I've come across have 2 MAC addresses, one for 2.4 and one for 5 gigahertz. I think it can be hacked by using 2 machines running Armageddon, but haven't tried it yet. Any thoughts?
Okay, so there are a couple different things that can really mess up hacking Wi-Fi. One of them is if you're using a 2.4 gigahertz wireless network adapter and there's dual band supported on the network, you can be in a case where you start attacking someone on the 2.4 gigahertz network and you never capture a handshake because they just move over onto the 5 gigahertz network and the user doesn't even notice. The phone automatically or the laptop automatically switches over to the other network, which is outside the hearing range of your card, and you're in trouble. Now, there is a feature in Armageddon which allows you to aggressively pursue a target. So it will actually scan through networks and look to see if your target is channel hopping. So I would recommend using this option with a 2.4 and 5 gigahertz card enabled, because theoretically, if the tool is working correctly, it should enable you to follow the target if it does switch to 5 gigahertz, and it will also look to see if it is channel hopping to avoid your deauthentication attacks.
Cool. So Kody, did you watch all 4 seasons of Mr. Robot?
Yes, I did. That guy needs counseling, and I think it's important that everyone gets mental health care, because in the United States it's often stigmatized, and I really feel like this plot would be a lot shorter if he had just gotten effective mental health care like in season 1. So for me, it just kind of reinforced how difficult it is to get good mental health care in the United States.
Oh, okay. This is one I really wanted to answer. Okay. Not able to catch the live stream. Any thoughts on Starlink and astronomers' controversy?
Hey, we have some thoughts on Starlink because we're on Starlink, but we stopped streaming on it because
Yeah, we stopped streaming on
this is
Starlink.
the better than nothing beta. So we frequently will get dropouts of like 5-10 minutes, which is pretty unacceptable for a live stream. So we live in the northern United States, very close to Canada, and this is really the only area where there is good coverage right now most of the time. If you were to try this out in like Southern California, where we used to be, this would not work because there's just not the satellites over you that there are here. Now, we've tried out other satellite solutions like HughesNet, and they are honestly terrible. While I felt fancy being on a satellite phone connection, the lag is like 4 seconds. So by the time the other person hears what you said and starts replying, you've already started your next sentence because they've been paused for 4 seconds, and you end up talking over each other, and the whole thing is just a nightmare.
Yeah.
So regular geostationary satellite sucks, but also Starlink isn't quite there enough to be able to provide high-speed internet continuously. That being said, if you're in a rural area in the northern United States and you need fast internet to be able to download or upload files, this actually beats out our internet service provider here for upload speed.
And to clarify some things there, so the problem, so it's really fast, but the problem with streaming with it is basically every 10 minutes or so, it's going to hop satellites, and that causes like a couple seconds where we just drop a ton of frames. So that made us like look like we were freezing onto one of the streams, so we stopped doing that. But as far as the astronomers' controversy, so what they're referring to is the fact that these satellites are really bright, and so when astronomers are using their observatories to look at the stars at night, you get these really bright streaks across the sky from these satellites. I will give kudos to SpaceX and Starlink because they have recognized that is a problem, and they are doing things to attempt to lower the albedo or the brightness of those satellites, including like little shades and different paints and stuff. So obviously it is a problem. At least they're not being like, total screw-ups about it, and they're trying to do something about it. I think you're always going to have some competition between like science and technology and what's good. But I would look a little broader and say that SpaceX is going to make it easier to get into space. So then we are able to have, more Hubbles and James Webb telescopes and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Fine.
So that means...
Sorry, I got to pull the plug on this.
Yeah.
All right.
End rant.
Yes. Okay. So I will also say that SpaceX has a private bug bounty program for their Starlink. So if you manage to get a hold of one in the beta, then if you want to start hacking away on it, you can make money doing that. I've noticed there's an SSH port open, and I am currently working on it. So
Ooh, that would be fun if we just made it some... no, I don't know if that would work. Never mind.
No, so hopefully I'll be able to find something. I can report it to SpaceX, and we can tell you guys a little bit about what it's like to submit like a bug bounty report for Starlink, which would be really cool. But that, of course, requires me to actually find something first. So I guess we'll see. So also, Joseph wants to know how you, Michael, got started in cybersecurity.
Do we have to recount this story every so often? So I would... As far as like cybersecurity, I basically was a super noob at home in college. I was majoring in aerospace engineering. I was very interested in computers and stuff. So I started researching on YouTube, which is the way I usually research stuff. And I found DEF CON talks. I started watching DEF CON talks. I started thinking about some of the topics I was interested in researching, which involved like massive scale open source intelligence and stuff like that. So I taught myself some Python. I messed around with doing some API stuff and like gathering big data from various sources. And then I was like, oh, hey, I like this. This is interesting. I really want to learn more. So I went to DEF CON. I was like, screw it. I'm going to go. I'll throw myself into the deep end. I know I'm going to be barely even a script kiddie at that point. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
Also, we had a question about which Raspberry Pi would be best to go with for Kali requirements. So the question is whether to use a Raspberry Pi 4, 4 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes. So I just wanted to mention that there's some really cool stuff that's come out for the Raspberry Pi 4. Kali Linux has, I believe, a 64 gigabyte version, but it does not work on the 4 gigabyte version of the Raspberry Pi. So if you want to get in on some of these really cool advancements, like a 64 gigabyte version of Kali Linux available for the Raspberry Pi, or I think the new Ubuntu also needs at least the 8 gigabyte version of the Raspberry Pi 4, but I'm not totally sure about that. Either way, I would play it safe and get the 8 gigabyte one, just so that you can play with some of the new stuff that's coming out that make having a Raspberry Pi 4 really great.
Yeah, if you can afford it, I would always get the 8 gigabyte RAM. Like, it's a couple dollars extra, and why not have it? Like, if you're gonna go ahead and spend like $60, why not spend $75 and get that? But yeah, we do have one more question.
Yeah.
And so that's Starlink and body cam hacking, please.
Yes. So I was going to write an article for Motherboard about body cam hacking, like how to be able to detect police body cameras, potentially make them connect to you, and do all sorts of other interesting things. Now, I held off on this because they didn't do some very professional work with a maker I'm very fond of, Naomi Wu, and I didn't want to really work with them after that. Motherboard, yes. So as a result, I shelved this project, but I've been getting a lot of requests for it, so I think in the near future I'm going to try to see if I can buy on eBay or just request from the company a Axon police body camera and start poking around with the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi features to show you guys how they work, because, you know, why not?
Yeah, that would be an awesome live stream.
Oh, and so I think there was also the question, how did I meet Michael, and then how did I get started in InfoSec?
That was at DEF CON.
Yeah, so I met Michael at DEF CON. He was one of the first people I met when I went there by myself when I was working at Nullbyte for the first time as a writer and editor. And originally I got into security. I've kind of always been into security, but physical security. So I used to be the manager of security at a music venue called the Echo and the Echoplex in Los Angeles. I went from taking away people's fake IDs and dealing with security situations and fights to managing the equipment that we were using, programming the radios, locking down our Wi-Fi, and eventually I decided I didn't want to get punched in the face for a living anymore, and I wanted to transition into doing startup work. Startup work transitioned me into doing more technical stuff, which included writing for Nullbyte, and from there I got familiar with using security tools, which got me into programming, and that's kind of what got me into where I am now.
You know, a kind of funny thing about us meeting at DEF CON is you were offering these Nullbyte jobs to like tons of hackers there, but I was the only one that like consistently hit him up afterward and be like, hey, you had that thing that made money. Could I do that?
Yep. One of the first things I did as soon as I got my InfoSec job was I didn't want to work by myself. I wanted to meet other hackers, and I wanted to involve them in a community and get something started. So at Nullbyte, I went out and tried to find people who were willing to write for us, people who wanted to be part of the community, and Michael was one of the first members of that community, along with some of our other co-hosts we've had on, like Nick, and well, we haven't had Ian on yet, but
yeah,
other people
Tim
too.
was also around that
Oh yeah,
time.
and Tim as well. Yeah, Tim was another writer on Nullbyte.
And that's all the pre-prepared questions.
Wow. All right, guys. So now it's up to you. We have about like 15 minutes or so left. If you have any questions for us, or if you want us to cover anything in particular, the floor is now yours. I think we've covered all of our good questions from YouTube, at least the ones that we saw before this, because I think we got another like 10 questions in.
Yeah, I usually check the comments like a day or two before. So sorry if you did some last-minute comments on the previous Q&A video. And if you're watching this after this is live, then just put a comment in the video below and we'll save it for next week.
Yeah, and let me...
or week after next. Next fortnight. Not to be confused with the game, but actually the classical term, Fortnite.
Oh, and then if you switch over to my screen, I'm also going to show off by the time we do our next live stream, so not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after, we will also be picking a new winner from the list of people who sign up for our updates. So if you want to put in your email here, then we will not only send you updates when we're doing anything really exciting. So if we're doing like workshops or webinars or anything really cool, the last webinar you guys had a prize of $250.
Yeah, seriously, like they just gave out $250.
If you wanna stay updated for stuff like that, you can sign up here, and you can also be one of the people that wins a prize. We're going to be giving out shirts. We're going to be giving out Cards Against Humanities, and we're probably not giving out any more of these. So Zam, congratulations, you have a unique gift because only 4 of these exist. But hopefully we'll be giving out some other great stuff too.
And look out on your email for an email from us in the next couple of days about that.
Yeah, and also I want to give a shout out to Spacesoon. We just got 60 of these awesome long range / Andromeda deauthor boards in, which are super, super cool. We're going to be doing a live stream with Stefan. I think it's probably going to be our next live stream. And these boards allow you to take off the antenna, and they're like Wi-Fi deauthors, but you can put on a highly directional antenna. We've been strapping on a giant Yagi antenna and get crazy range out of these in a particular direction.
That'll probably be Tuesday's live stream.
Yeah, so we're going to be going over all the great stuff you can do with these. I believe we're also going to be dropping a run of these on, you can go to hack.gay to see the store there. But it's really, really cool what you can do with these directional Wi-Fi adapters, or sorry, Wi-Fi deauthors, because they act like a wireless network adapter, but they are pre-programmed to do a lot of awesome hacking stuff. So really excited about our next live stream, and hopefully, I think we're going to try to get Stefan on as a guest. So if you have any questions for the creator of the Wi-Fi duck and the Wi-Fi deauthor, then you can ask them there, because there's a lot of really exciting stuff going on.
Any good recommendations on doing man-in-the-middle attacks?
Yeah, so we just did BetterCap, and BetterCap, frankly, is so easy to demonstrate, like man-in-the-middle attacks on Ethernet, that it was so reliable. We were able to do it time and time and time again, and it just
Except
works.
when we typoed.
Except when we use typos.
Yeah. But such is the way of live demos.
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading through the comments now. So one question was, what physical MFA keys do I use? That's a good question. So I use a little, I think it's like a YubiKey key that is a Bluetooth combination USB key. So it has like, I think it's a multiple one. So you can plug it into a cable, like a USB cable, and then click it, and that works. Or you can connect to it via Bluetooth and press the button. And that's important because if you have an iOS device, it doesn't allow you to do NFC. So I have some other security tokens that are, I believe, the same brand. And you can just hold them against the back of your like Android phone, and it can read them via NFC, because you don't want to be plugging this stupid like key into the USB port of your phone. You'd have to take it out of the case. It would be dumb. So instead, the Bluetooth model is really cool, but the first version of them actually had a vulnerability, so they had to send me new ones. Because when you're first setting up the key, it's possible for a remote attacker to listen in on the key exchange, which is not smart. So, but yeah, in general, the YubiKey ones are just nice. Like, they tend to work very reliably, and there's a lot of different options. So the YubiKey ones have worked well for me, and I find them as easy as MFA tokens can be to use. But you have to keep track of them.
Alrighty. You want to wrap that up? For any final questions? Otherwise,
I'm just going through, how do you hack Michael's IoT gadgets? So many ways, you guys.
We actually have a Hack 5 episode that will be coming out on that. So no spoilers too much.
So yeah, but I would say if you want to go back and see some of the ways we've done it, in particular, we have an episode on using Python to take over IoT lights. And there's lots of different IoT devices where there are Python libraries that are released that allow you to control their API. So for example, with Yeelights, it's really easy to scan the network, identify Yeelights, and then start sending them commands. And this is just a series of like 4 or 5 lines of Python to get a list of all the lights on the network and start sending them commands. So really, really easy to do this if you're on the same Wi-Fi network. And as I mentioned in our webinar we just did, you can also, for example, grab one of the Yeelights, take it apart, connect to the ESP, and dump the firmware, and possibly get the credentials to the Wi-Fi network too.
Yeah. Although that would be hard. You gotta do some electronic waste there.
Oh, okay. iOS now supports NFC keys. That's good, because before iOS was using like an or like a different spec for NFC, and the same keys that we were using would not work. But I actually got my keys directly from Google when they put me in as part of the Advanced Protection Program. If that's something you're interested in, look at the Google Advanced Protection Program, and they recommend a series of security keys, of which I got the Bluetooth ones. They make some pretty good recommendations, and the program is very good at locking down your account. But you need to be serious about this. You need to want it, because like they warn you multiple times, they're not going to help you get in. If you set this up and then like you block yourself from getting in by losing a key, or at least it's going to take quite some time and will need to be validated in a bunch of different ways.
What about Wi-Fi 6 security?
I don't know. Sorry, there's so many labels for Wi-Fi. I can tell you about WPA4.
Yeah,
like
WPA 3.
Sorry, I can tell you about WPA 3 security.
That's Wi-Fi 6.
Well, Wi-Fi 6 is a whole standard that involves a bunch of other stuff, though. So I can't quite speak super definitively. The WPA 3. But
which already has some vulnerabilities.
So if you want to learn about Wi-Fi 6/WPA3, check out our friend Matthew Van Hoff. He is on Twitter, and he also has a website with his research papers on it, and he's already started poking lots of holes in the standard.
Yeah.
What is Michael's current job? Michael works for me, so I am his boss, and that is the job.
Okay.
Kody
works at Varonis. I contract for Varonis.
At my discretion. I guess I mean, we can find out. And then do you think using a VPN provider is enough security to hide your location? No. Frequently, when you visit a website, it will scrape information like your keyboard and your keyboard language and your time settings. So these two things alone can reveal your location if you've selected a completely
not
different
precisely, but the Canary tokens, and what was the other one?
What do you mean, not precisely?
So, like, if you're using a time zone, right, that's going to give you, like, oh, they're in this certain region, but it's not going to give you, like, a certain address.
Right, but it will tell you if the location they're giving you is fake.
That is true.
So if I have someone who like says they're coming, their IP address is in the Philippines, but their time zone is sent to like like my time zone, I know that they're somewhere in this slice of the world, which at least
it could flag you.
Yeah, which flags it as they're using a VPN or something else. So
But as far as security, no. Like if they do sneak in like a certain token or cookie or something like that, that's grabbing things like your screen size and other fingerprinting measures, they can pretty much uniquely identify you. And then if you mess up once and they get your location somehow, maybe you send them your GPS coordinates because you Googled like a Starbucks near me or something like that, right? So.
Yeah, so AceTep also asked if there's any way to watch the webinar we just did. Yes, I believe they're going to be releasing it for download. You might need to put in your email address or something to see it. Little hint, if it doesn't let you put in a Gmail, you can just put in anything. Yeah, so that it's free. You'll be able to watch it. Just Google Bringing Back Cat Fancy with DNS spoofing. That's the title. And as soon as it's up, I believe you'll be able to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're coming up on our time.
Yeah, we're basically out of time.
Yeah, so, all right, you guys. We have a lot of great content coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be giving out more prizes. Thank you guys for joining us on these live streams. They are a lot of fun. And again, we also try to answer all the questions that we get on the YouTube channel in between. So if you're not able to make the live stream, then just put the question on the YouTube channel in the comments, and we will select them and make sure to answer them on the stream, because we want you guys to know that we do watch and listen to all the comments. We read them. We make sure that we think about the responses a little bit and give you guys some good advice. So yeah, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Catch our next live stream in 2 weeks from now on Wednesday, I believe, right?
Yep, correct.
Okay. And until now and then, we'll also have some other great topics on our normal times on Tuesday and Friday.
Almost forgot that one for a second. Okay.
Cool. All right, you guys. We will see you guys later. And yeah, thanks again. Bye.
Doodles.